We're going to dive into a topic that affects way more people than you might think: why it can be so hard to get therapy for your family or your relationship. And it all boils down to a story about two little billing codes. So let's just get right to it. The central question of this whole thing: why on earth would a therapy session with a whole family, which, let's be honest, is often way more complicated, get paid less by insurance than a session with just one person? It makes no sense, right? Well, we're about to find out why. Okay, meet the two main characters in our story: CPT codes 9837 and 9847. The first one is for individual therapy, the second is for family or couples therapy. Now here's the kicker, the one detail that causes all the problems. 9847, the family code, often gets paid at a much lower rate. And that tiny difference, it has a massive ripple effect. All right, let's peel back the first layer here. To really get what's going on, we need to understand what these codes actually mean, according to the official rulebook that therapists have to use. So you look at this, and on the surface, they look almost identical. Both are for sessions that last about an hour. The only real difference is the focus. One is all about the individual, the other is about how the patient's issues play out in their relationships. The time commitment is basically the same, but the pay, not even close. And that brings us to a really important question. If insurance companies are paying less for family therapy, are they saying it's, I don't know, easier, less valuable work? Let's take a closer look and see if that idea holds any water at all. I mean, it's just common sense when you think about it. Adding more people to a therapy session doesn't just mean you need more chairs. It cranks up the complexity, the emotional energy, and the level of skill that therapist needs to bring to the table, like tenfold. And here's what that extra complexity actually looks like. The therapist is juggling multiple relationships at once, trying to keep conflicts from boiling over, and thinking about the entire family system. Not to mention, the paperwork gets more complicated too. So calling this lesser work? No way. It's often way, way more demanding. Okay, so we've established it's incredibly complex work. But is it actually effective? Does it get results? Let's see what the science has to say about it. This is a big one. A Cochrane review, which is basically the gold standard for medical research, found that for depression, couples therapy works just as well as individual therapy. Plus, it has the huge added bonus of making the relationship stronger. So the idea that it's some kind of second-rate treatment is just wrong. And the proof doesn't stop with depression. We're talking about major adolescent issues like substance use and behavioral problems. Family therapy is a game changer there. And get this, it can actually be more cost-effective in the long run. So from both a clinical and a financial perspective, the evidence is overwhelming. So let's recap. Family therapy is complex, it's highly effective, and it can even save money. So what happens in the real world when we underpay for it? This is where a technical billing problem turns into a very real, very human problem. And this is the absolute key takeaway. When we're talking about these payment rates, this isn't just about how much a therapist makes. What we're really talking about is whether a family or a couple can even get the kind of care that's most likely to help them heal. It sets off this chain reaction, this domino effect. First, the code is underpaid. So what happens? Fewer therapists are willing to offer that service through insurance, which means patients can't find the care they need. So their relationship problems get worse. And you know what? That can actually lead to higher healthcare costs down the road. Now, this whole domino effect isn't just bad practice. It actually bumps up against a really important legal idea called a non-quantitative treatment limitation, or NQTL. It sounds complicated, but the idea is simple. Federal law says you can't create hidden barriers to mental health care. And the argument here is that paying a rate so low that nobody will offer the service, well, that's a pretty big barrier, isn't it? Okay, so we've really dug into the problem. But let's not just leave it there. What can we actually do about it? The good news is there are some very practical, very doable solutions on the table. The first and most straightforward fix is just rate parity. It's simple. Pay for an hour of family therapy the exact same amount you pay for an hour of individual therapy. This lines up the payment with the time spent and gets rid of the financial penalty for doing the right kind of therapy. Solution 2 goes even a step further. It's called a complexity adjustment. This approach basically says, hey, we recognize that managing a whole family in a room is actually more work. So you'd add a little extra payment to the family therapy code to reflect that extra difficulty. This kind of thing happens all the time for complex procedures in other parts of medicine. And the third solution is all about using policy to make change. States can update their Medicaid payment rules, or big insurance companies can just write it into their contracts that these codes have to be paid fairly. It's about using the power of these huge systems to make sure everyone has access to the full range of effective treatments. So at the end of the day, a tiny difference between two codes can throw up huge roadblocks to getting care. And it really makes you think, what is the point of mental health parity if we don't value all forms of proven effective care equally? If we truly believe mental health is as important as physical health, then shouldn't we pay for it that way? Makes you wonder.